In this video, we'll explore the history and types of social change movements in the UK and beyond. Understanding social change movements helps us to recognise the roots of inequality and injustice, better understand how we respond to oppression, and understand the ongoing impact of historical injustices on present-day societal dynamics. Social change movements inform your EDI practice as they inspire your advocacy for people experiencing marginalisation in regard to exploring the variety of ways you can practice solidarity. What is a social change movement? A social change movement is a collective effort by a group of individuals or organisations to bring about significant change in societal attitudes, behaviours, practices, or structures, often in response to injustices, inequalities, or societal problems. They typically advocate for specific causes or issues, such as civil rights, environmental sustainability, gender equality, or economic justice. Social change movements can take various forms and aim for different change levels from individual behaviour or societal structures. Here are some of the prominent types. Alternative movements aim for partial change in individuals' behaviour and promote alternative approaches. An example of this is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Other examples are the campaigns to promote recycling, reduce buying fast fashion, and buying from social enterprises. Reformative movements seek gradual changes within existing systems or institutions to address specific issues or injustices. These movements often work within the framework of established laws and institutions, advocating for legislative reforms, policy changes, or administrative adjustments. Examples are civil rights movements in the USA and Ireland and the women's suffrage movement. Redemptive movements aim to provoke a profound spiritual or moral transformation within individuals or groups, often through new religious doctrines or revival of existing spiritual principles. They may demand radical changes in beliefs and behaviours that conflict with existing norms. Some of these movements can be extractive or appropriate from certain cultures. They can also become extreme, use coercive practices, or even violence. Revolutionary movements seek fundamental and often rapid transformation of existing social, political, or economic structures. They challenge the status quo and advocate for radical changes in power dynamics, governance systems, and societal norms. Revolutionary movements may employ tactics such as armed struggle, mass uprisings, or grassroots organising to overthrow existing regimes or establish new socio-political orders. Examples include the freedom fighters' movement for independence from the British Empire in India, the French Revolution, and the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. It's worth remembering that many movements or approaches to social change will be informed and shaped by unique factors and specifics from the time and environment in which they took place. So what's important is knowing that different movements are effective in various situations and have other impacts. Let's explore some other key movements. There's some key movements within the racial justice movement that are worth highlighting. The abolition of slavery. So the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery in the British Empire in 1833 was a monumental moment in the fight against racism and oppression. The tireless efforts of abolitionists, both black and white, played a crucial role in bringing an end to the brutal practice of chattel slavery. The civil rights movement. We often learn about the civil rights movement associated with the US. However, throughout the 20th century, black activists in the UK organised and campaigned for civil rights and racial equality. The formation of organisations such as the League of Coloured Peoples in the 1930s and the campaign against racial discrimination in the 1960s really laid the groundwork for the broader civil rights movement across the UK. The anti-apartheid movement, South Africa. This movement combated racial and economic oppression, culminating in the end of the apartheid and the establishment of a democratic government in 1994. The Black Lives Matter movement, BLM. The global renewal of the Black Lives Matter movement in recent years has had a profound impact on anti-racist activism in the UK. Protests, demonstrations, and campaigns have drawn attention to issues of police brutality, systemic racism, and racial inequality, prompting calls for structural change and accountability at all levels of society. The fight for gender equality. Feminism is a movement aimed at achieving political, economic, personal, and social equality of the sexes, with its roots in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, with different waves reflecting the socio-political context of its time. The first wave focused on legal inequalities, and the second wave, the 1960s to 1980s, expanded to issues like sexuality, family, workplace rights, and reproductive rights. The third wave, emerging in the 1990s, embraced intersectionality, acknowledging the diverse experiences of women. Black feminism arose to address the unique challenges of sexism, racism, and classism faced by Black women, often overlooked by mainstream feminism. The suffrage movement. The suffrage movement refers to the fight for women's right to vote and how this was a crucial turning point in the history of social change for women in the UK, spanning several decades. The Me Too movement. This originated in the US, but with global impact, and sparked conversations and activism around issues of sexual harassment, assault, and gender-based violence. In the UK, Me Too has led to increased awareness, advocacy, and accountability for perpetrators of sexual misconduct across various sectors, including politics, media, and entertainment. The LGBTQIA+ movement is a broad and diverse social and political movement advocating for the rights, acceptance, and equality of individuals who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning, intersex, asexual, and other sexual orientations and gender identities. In 1969, the Stonewall Uprisings occurred in New York City, USA, and had a profound impact on the LGBTQIA+ activism worldwide, including in the UK. The following year, the UK's first Pride March took place in London. Pride events have since become annual celebrations of identity, visibility, and rights, with some Pride events evolving to represent specific communities such as Trans Pride and Black Pride. The UK has a rich history of LGBTQIA+ social change and activism, marked by significant milestones and moments, including the Marriage Act 2013, which legalised same-sex marriage in England and Wales, allowing couples to marry and receive the same legal recognition and rights as heterosexual couples. A similar legislation was passed in Scotland in 2014 and Northern Ireland in 2020. The Gender Recognition Act 2004 allowed transgender people in the UK to apply for legal recognition of their acquired gender, enabling them to obtain a gender recognition certificate and change their legal gender on official documents. Disability justice. The Global Disability Rights Movement is an international movement that has worked to secure disability rights on a global scale, and the advocacy efforts of this movement led to the adoption of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2006. The disability rights movement in the UK gained momentum in the late 20th century, inspired by civil rights movements in other communities. Over decades, disabled people and their allies have organised, mobilised, lobbied, and protested tirelessly to advocate for equity, pushing for legislative changes, societal recognition, and improved accessibility and inclusion in all aspects of life. The Social Security Contributions and Benefits Act 1992 introduced the Disability Living Allowance and its successor, the Personal Independence Payment. These benefits help disabled people with the extra costs associated with their disability, providing financial assistance and support for independence. Challenging the class system. Social change movements worldwide have historically confronted economic oppression, promoting social and economic mobility for marginalized groups. These movements have spanned various eras and regions and are still a work in progress today. They reflect the global struggle for economic justice and equality, and the disparity between those with access to wealth and health. The Chartist movement was a working-class movement in the mid-19th century demanding political reforms, including universal male suffrage and secret ballots. Trade Union Movement UK is the formation of trade unions aimed at improving wages, working conditions, and workers' rights, with the first Trade Union Congress being held in Manchester in 1868. The anti-austerity movement was against government austerity measures post-2008 financial crisis, which largely affected groups experiencing marginalisation.